There he is. Darin, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Todd. Happy to join you.
What's that?
I'm happy to join you again.
Oh, thank you, man. So, and I'm happy you're here because I value your insight. You have a long history of, you're all over the news, first of all, and I was happy to get some time with you. But my sense is we're at an inflection point, and we really need to press for a good outcome in this situation. What say you?
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is part of the challenge of, I guess, the general way of American thinking right now. Is it seems like we're often unable to ride trains on multiple tracks at the same time and still be consistent, I guess you could say. So it's possible to look at the situation with Iran and say, okay, there's a positive here, meaning it's a dictatorship. They've been at war with us for 47 years. They've been coming after us for a very long time. Hezbollah's in Venezuela as much as it is in Lebanon. And we are their target and have been for a long time. We've been basically a punching bag for Iran in a variety of ways for far too long, and that a response was necessary.
Yeah.
At the same time, you can ask harder questions like, okay, are we going to fail militarily in Iran? Most likely not. What's next? How do you win the peace? How do you set the conditions to make sure you don't end up with a Syria where you end up with someone worse?
Yeah,
that was there in the first place. Can you do that without boots on the ground? Probably. But either way, I've been on the news, like you said, a lot lately, multiple channels around the country. And one thing I won't bend on is no boots on ground from America. No need.
Yeah.
If they can't fix their own problem for themselves after given the best opportunity they're ever handed, then there's not much else we can do for them. There's 90 million people in Iran. It's much bigger than Afghanistan, much bigger than Iraq, much harder nut to crack. If we thought we could send American forces in to do that for them, that's just a big no from me, considering what else is going on around the world. So I think we can say great things, great opportunities, huge reward potential, also huge risk potential, and be intellectually consistent on all fronts. By making sure that we're not just blind lackeys following forward with saying everything's wonderful without asking hard questions and making sure that accountability isn't there as well.
Well, that's part of the media's responsibility. The fourth estate has been decimated, infiltrated. It's just essentially propaganda. So that's the role we're trying to fill. And I agree with you. My sense is that, as you said, we've given them a hell of an opportunity. We need to create some kind of handoff here. Right. Yeah. I mean, like, here you go. Here's your opportunity. Maybe we fund them. Maybe we give them weapons or whatever. But, I'm tied to the Iranian resistance. There's other forces. There's the Kurds. There's other minority groups. There's, the monarchists, which I don't think have any force structure in country, but they do have a political, entity outside. So any thoughts on how that might look? Or any thoughts on what groups may take the lead position?
Yeah, and this is why this is actually the hardest part of the mission. It's not the destruction of the Iranian air defense system; it's the ability to create a governing structure that can last afterwards. That's the hard part. I get the Crown Prince being in America, Pahlavi, and what he could do for Iran potentially. The hard part would be how is he received inside Iran if he were to move there, having been here for 40 years. Yeah, many of the people there may look at him, and you're looking at a couple generations difference, and they're going to be, where were you while we were suffering here? Yeah. And that's a legitimate question: is how is he received, and do they look at him as an implant of the United States, or a returning escapee, or something else? There may be people inside. Now, that doesn't mean I disagree with the idea of potentially attempting to let him build a transitional system to get to where they can have elections in Iran and pick their own leaders, or some equivalent that's close to just making sure they're not what they are now. It doesn't mean we have to go in there and say we're planting the democratic flag in Iran. Shoot, there's no democratic flag in Saudi Arabia, and they're basically an ally. So it's not about dictating their governance. It's about saying, you know what, don't be a terrorist business, a global terrorist corporation, and everything like that. And, in my Substack, I wrote about about 12 different key strategic objectives or byproducts of success in Iran, if that were to happen. And the Kurds came up in that because, as you know, the Kurds are in Iran, they're in Iraq, they're in Turkey, they're actually in northern Syria as well. They could be a positive force for change. And those other nations that I just listed, of course, would be concerned about what the Kurds do. Turkey doesn't trust the Kurds. Kurds are basically an independent, autonomous entity in northeastern Iraq, despite where the lines on a map lie. And so this is an interesting equation that we have to look at and wonder about. But as you know, and I've experienced, the Kurds are the best ally in the world when they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
You do not want to mess with them. They're very dangerous as well.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Well, we just shafted them in Syria. I mean, we literally just shafted them in Syria and allowed many of them to be killed. So I don't know how you go to them, and that was maybe more of the Syrian Kurds than the Iraqi Kurds, but I don't know how you go to them and say, the Peshmerga, and say, help us at this point. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. That's a challenge. I mean, and no doubt about it. And so the question is, will they do anything at all in the first place, or will they just be content to shore up their enclave and say, you know what we have in Kurdistan and Iraq, we now have in northern Iran as well, and just stay out. You leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And that may be the best answer. Yeah. Frankly, I'm fine with that. Because as we all know, the British wrote the lines on the Middle East and messed it all up in the first place. So if they formed their own nations in essence and leave us alone, then who are we to interfere and think we need to solve that for them? Let them take care of it themselves.
Well, the terrorism thing you mentioned is real, because I literally was in Paris at an event in 2019, and they found bombs in the parking lot in the trunk. So, I mean, that is and that was the Iranian diplomats who were found busted out, I think, Norway, or Germany, that came to France with the weapon. We're trying to blow up an event. So that is real. So how do you stop that, do you think?
How do you stop Iran from exporting terror?
Yeah. Besides a full-scale war and regime change, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's I guess you could say the regime's already changed. It's just a question where it's going to continue to change, because obviously Khamenei's son is just Khamenei 2.0. But it comes down to the funding. A lot of it is the funding and the logistics of the whole thing. So, okay, that Substack I wrote talked about the fact that we just took two of the main oil suppliers to China off the table. And China got oil for cheap, and they're all in bed together in this. And you take away some of the funding to the Tehran regime, that it leads to the logistics of manufacturing terrorism, manufacturing, by the way, drones that go to Russia, which also fight then in Ukraine, and the different layered effects. I think it all just comes down to resources, and the resources that Iran is using is the money, and the money that leads to the logistics to make these things possible. You take that away, and suddenly you've drained Hezbollah of their resources. You've drained what's left of Hamas, if anything, of theirs. And the same with the Houthis. Venezuela's could be removed as a platform for Iran to use in South America also. I think that's a healthy start, and certainly not the end. These people are still out there. In fact, they're in the United States. We know this to be true. In the U.S., I encourage neighborhood watches, and don't rely on law enforcement. Rely on your community.
Yeah, that's critical. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that for some time. You got to have some kind of community groups to, even if it's just even if 1,000 migrants get off the train in your city, and start invading houses, you need to have a way the cops can't deal with that. You need to really prepare for this in your own communities. That's highly important, along with medical, along with, you know, all kind of things that you need to make sure you're resilient, food, etc. Well, what else do people need to know about this, Darin? I know you don't have a lot of time, but anything else you wanted to get out?
Well, you know, I think it's important that for those who claim a faith basis to have a biblical worldview of all this as well. And you know, if you read through the Old Testament and then compare it to the New Testament and do your studies, I won't get into all of it, but it's worth noting the history of Iran going back to Cyrus the Great. And just take a look at that from that perspective and think about what's happening now relative to all of that and say, you know what? I'm going to sit back and remind myself that God is still on his throne. I don't have to worry about this, even while I can ask the hard questions. Asking hard questions is fine, while also trusting the fact that we know whose hands the earth is in, and that's okay. So let's just be honest, be reasonable, and not be the hotheads you talked about, and provide the analysis that leads to people trusting us.
Yeah, essentially, there's a lot of hotheads out there right now, and a lot of finger pointing, and a lot of anger, and a lot of doom and gloom, which I don't agree with. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the plan is there. We just have to, as my friend Chris Gleason said, our job is the efforts department, and we just need to keep working to try to find a good solution, and that's what we're going to do here. Thank you, Darin, for your time. I know you got a lot to do today, so good luck on your other interviews.
All right. Hey, thanks, Todd.
Bye.